Hi, and welcome to a special edition of GX Talks called Leadership Dialogues. I'm Dr. Jonathan Reichental. I'm the founder and CEO of Human Future. I'm a professor at the University of San Francisco and UC Berkeley, and I'm the author of Smart Cities for Dummies. But I'm delighted to be here with some incredible, illustrious people and speakers, and we're going to be talking about delivering public services in a post-pandemic world, leadership lessons and experiences from change makers. So the world has changed in the last few months, and we're all witness to history being made. As we can all imagine, the future of digital enablement, sustainability, and continuous improvement in terms of how governments across the world deliver services may not look like it did before in a post-pandemic world. To reflect upon this, we've brought together three amazing global thought leaders and practitioners to talk about lessons they've learned and how they're thinking ahead about the lives of people to make them better than it was yesterday. So welcome to this special session of GX Talks, a unique initiative of collaboration run by the Emirates Government Service Excellence Program at the Prime Minister's Office of the United Arab Emirates. So first, we're joined by Secretary Janet Napolitano. Janet is a professor of public policy at the Goldman School of Public Policy at UC Berkeley. She served as the 20th president of the University of California, the nation's largest public research university with 10 campuses, 5 medical centers, 3 affiliated national laboratories, and a statewide agriculture and natural resources program. Prior to joining the University of California, Professor Napolitano served as a Secretary of Homeland Security from 2009 to 2013. She's a former 2-term governor of Arizona, a former Attorney General of Arizona, and a former U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona. In 2019, Napolitano published How Safe Are We? Homeland Security Since 9/11. Professor Napolitano earned her BS degree, summa cum laude in political science from Santa Clara University and her JD from the University of Virginia. She's based in Berkeley. What a resume. You're very welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Jonathan.
And welcome to Mayor Kate Gallego. Kate Gallego is the mayor of Phoenix, Arizona, the 5th largest city in the nation. In November 2020, she was returned to office by the highest number of votes ever cast for a mayoral candidate in Phoenix. Mayor Gallego is the 2nd elected female mayor in Phoenix history and one of the youngest big city mayors in the United States. She graduated from Harvard University and earned an MBA from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Before being elected to Phoenix City Council, Mayor Gallego worked on economic development for a local utility company, a Salt River project. Mayor Gallego has focused on 3 key policy areas during her time in office: diversifying the economy, strengthening infrastructure investment, and working to make Phoenix a leader in sustainability. This year, 2020, saw a significant addition to that list, ensuring the public health is protected by adhering to the evolving science around the COVID-19 virus. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you.
An amazing resume there too. Wow, how wonderful, and congrats on all your successes. And we have also, final but not least, His Excellency Mohamed bin Taliah, my friend. His Excellency Mohamed bin Taliah is the Chief of Government Services at the United Arab Emirates Government and the Assistant Director General for Government Services Sector at the Prime Minister's Office in the Ministry of Cabinet Affairs, where he oversees the Emirates Government Service Excellence Program, aiming to raise the efficiency of government services. Mohamed served in several managerial positions in both public and private sectors for more than 16 years in the field of IT, cybersecurity, and governance with organizations like Abu Dhabi Media Company, Emirates Global Aluminum, and Taliah Telecom. Mohamed holds an executive management degree in leadership and management from MIT Sloan School of Management, a master's of science in project management from the British University in Dubai, and a Bachelor of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Khalifa University in Abu Dhabi. Welcome, Mohamed.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Such a pleasure. What an incredible background you have, and all of you. So I'm going to start with a question for you, Janet. In your 2019 book, How Safe Are We? Homeland Security Since 9/11, you talked about the need for us to confront our real risks, not perceived ones, and pandemics were on your list. You warned that we remained ill-prepared for pandemics, and you also said that learning from mistakes is all too rare in government. So when it comes to lessons learned, where would you start?
So many lessons learned from the pandemic. One of them, of course, is the importance of public health to safety and security, and the need for clear, science-based communication with the populace. The second is a reevaluation of supply chains, the supply chains for personal protective equipment, for the material need to manufacture vaccine, and the like. And the third is that at least in the United States, it's how fragile our healthcare system is and how easily it can be overwhelmed when you have a surge of people who need intensive care treatment. And I think that as a nation, as we come out of the pandemic, looking at how we communicated, how our leaders communicated, reevaluating our supply chains, and thinking about what needs to be available domestically versus in the globalized supply chain, and then really looking at our structure of medical personnel and hospitals. And that's going to take a lot of work in the United States, I must say.
Yeah, great insights. Thank you. Let's go over to the Middle East, to Mohamed. What would you say are your key lessons, not only for you as an individual, but also for you as a government leader?
I would say, Jonathan, and I would concur with Janet, I would say that health is the most important thing that we need to focus on. And that was a wake-up call. You know, we do put a lot of care and investment into healthcare systems. However, we did never give it the importance. I would say, I'm not saying just in the Middle East or the UAE, but even globally, we didn't give it the importance that it deserves. And this pandemic is a wake-up call, letting us understand, you know, yes, we want to care about the horse and the carriage, you know, but at the same time, health is what carries them both. And we need to focus on our healthcare system and healthcare awareness. We did a lot of work during the pandemic to bring the public awareness up to the level that is needed so that they can deal with this pandemic. And I believe that this had made a healthier practice across sectors, whether it comes to individuals in the community or in different industries. It increased their health awareness, I would say, when they do their day-to-day jobs or day-to-day life.
Yeah, we're reminded about the intersection between health and economics, you know, and the future of our cities and nations. Let's go back now to the US, to you, Kate. Listening to Mohamed and Janet, do you have, does it resonate with you? And what sort of other lessons have you taken away from this unusual period?
I couldn't agree more that health has to be at the forefront. What we're finding is that communities, countries that took health seriously are coming back economically more strongly, and that people are willing to rejoin the economy when they feel safe doing so. For us also, mental health has become increasingly important. Our system was not great to begin with, but we saw huge challenges and more young people who are struggling. Here in the city of Phoenix, we lost our highest ranking police officer ever in a shooting where the victim was in mental health crisis. Doesn't excuse it, but I think it's notable that here in Phoenix, our biggest new program during my time as an elected official, which is now about 7 years ever, will be an investment in mental health and having more clinicians to respond. So that was something that we probably should have learned before, just as we should have with supply chains and investment in healthcare. But 2020 made new things politically possible here, where there's more consensus that we didn't find before. Another great lesson for me is the world feels a little bit smaller, which has been nice. I have been able to collaborate with leaders across the globe in ways that I had not before. For example, early in the pandemic, I was able to convene with global mayors, and we learned a lot from Chinese mayors about how they had responded, but also some great success stories out of Korea about how they had invested in testing, and that made their communities safer. And that was one of the things that really inspired me to put a emphasis on testing here in Phoenix, seeing how it had succeeded globally. Now we are comfortable having conversations, including very important and difficult ones, online. That wasn't the case before. Usually when I would meet with other mayors from even across my own country, it would always be in person. And so I hope that is one of the success stories that continues, that we can more easily have a conversation with folks on the other side of our globe, but make it feel a little bit closer to home.
Thank you. Like we're doing now. That's right. I'm very happy that you bring to the surface mental health too. We often forget that illness sometimes is invisible to the eye. So thank you for raising that. I'm going to continue with you, Kate. And so let's start to shift to technology a little bit. Looking at what's happening broadly across governments, it seems that the current push to modernize government technology has been focused on the delivery of using government services by digitalization and other related technology best practices. But is that the full story? What about, for example, policy? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So we've seen great successes in both investments in new technology that we didn't have as for, but also adoption of existing technology. Phoenix is the fastest growing city in the United States, and that means a lot of construction activity. Before the pandemic, we got about 25% of our permits online, and now we get 75%. And good news for us, the level of permits actually stayed pretty level throughout the pandemic. People continued to invest. But the pandemic inspired people to try technology, and so we saw the adoption curves are just going to be much steeper than we would have seen before COVID-19, because people tried so many new forms of technology. But we were also inspired to invest in many new ones, including it out like on the building side. We are now doing more inspections by mobile phone, where a person might install a new, sewer line, and they would show our inspector through their mobile phone. So you don't have to worry about the inspector getting lost. It tends to be a faster interaction and more efficient for government. So those innovations will continue. Policy has also been very important, though. At least in my community, we are having very difficult conversations about privacy, about error rate and what is acceptable. There's so many decisions that we make in local government, including around law enforcement, where the implications are long-lasting and life-changing. And so what might be an acceptable error rate with a music portal is very different when you're making life and death decisions. So I think policy is also evolving and having very important dialogues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of these changes are positive, of course, and some of the technology examples you gave are changing the game in terms of government experience. Those remote inspections in particular have really exploded all over the country. And talking about tech, I'd like to ask you, Mohamed, you're a technology guy. I'm so impressed with your background and your work in this area. Talk a little bit about the technologies that you're excited about and you're seeing sort of emerge out of this pandemic.
Um, I would say, that the pandemic allowed us to understand more about our customers' experience and interaction with technology. Since we have seen, a higher adoption rate during the pandemic, we also listened to our customers and understood what they want from technology and how they want technology to serve them better when it comes to government services. I would say that one of the key turning points for us here during the pandemic is the adoption of digital signature and digital certificates has been very high, that today the community and our customers are more keen and more leaning towards signing documents digitally rather than signing them physically on paper, which is a positive move for us, because this was the hindering point for us to move to the digital world when it comes to government services. A lot of our customers still want to see papers that are signed and stamped, still feel better having humans interacting with them in front of them. But with the pandemic and with them being forced to go on technology, being forced to go on video conference like the one we're on right now, and also using digital channels on mobile applications and digital portals, allow them to explore and understand a new world of services that arrives to them at the convenience of their palm. And this was one of the great turning key points. We also have invested into utilizing blockchain to transform services for example, such as notary public, such as certification and attestation of documentation, from being a physical, cumbersome, complicated process for services into a very efficient online service that can be done with each party in this transaction in different places around the world. And this has never been done before. Now our customers, the citizens, the residents within the United Arab Emirates, international investors, and are more willing to be part of this digital services experience. And we're seeing a very rapid uptake on all fronts when it comes to digital services. And during this pandemic, we have shut down 50% of the federal government service centers due to the transformation to digital platforms, which has been a very successful, I would say, turnaround for us here when it comes to digital platforms.
When we look back historically, we may see COVID as the greatest catalyst to digitalization. These things were happening, but they are happening much faster now. We have the motivation. So well done on your successes there. Now, people who know me know I'm a lover of technology. I've been talking about it and promoting it my whole life, but I'm also a realist, and it's not all positive in some respects. So this is now going over to Janet, this question. You once remarked that it's important to have a good imagination, even a dark one. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, this is based on my experience as the Homeland Security Secretary for the United States, but I think it's important for people, particularly people in leadership positions, to imagine different scenarios and even and importantly, worst case scenarios. So for example, to the extent we become digitally dependent and essential municipal services, say, become digitally dependent, well, what happens if you suffer a denial of service attack or a ransomware attack, and all of a sudden those services become unavailable? Do you have a plan to deal with that? Do you have a backup in mind? That's what I mean when I say we should not suffer from a failure of imagination, particularly where security issues are concerned.
Yeah, no, terrific points, and a great reminder. Sometimes, a lot of my colleagues, we get excited about the promise of tech at the cost of the risks, and so I think your advice there is really very important. So thank you. So heading back to Kate, as IT gets consumerized, we look at things like Airbnb, Uber, Amazon. This is all molding, community and expectations for engaging with any organization. But governments at all levels are not necessarily keeping up. My question is, why should working with, say, your DMV or post office or your road transport authority be any less modern and experiential than engaging with these, popular apps like Spotify or Airbnb? Are we expecting too much from government? Is that the right expectation?
It's certainly important to have high standards, but we also need to know that we have different goals in government. We have to serve our entire population, which tends to be more diverse than perhaps the original customer base of Spotify. I was an undergraduate at Harvard when Facebook was born. At that time, everyone who Facebook served was a college undergraduate in the United States. We all had access to what was then considered high-speed internet, although with today's standards would not be. We all had access to cameras where we could upload digital content. And so meeting our needs was more narrow. You didn't have to do as many things because we were a relatively homogeneous population.
Yeah.
But at the City of Phoenix, I serve people who speak many different languages, around 60. We have many different literacy levels. And so we have to design products that work for our entire population. As we design that mental health program I was talking about, we are producing information for people who have PhDs and intellectual understandings, but we're also producing content that is primarily visual for people who we might describe as low literacy. So we have to serve everyone, and that is a different goal than a Spotify might have or an Airbnb. They may not be as concerned about serving someone who is low literacy or who only speaks Farsi. But I think we are doing a good job serving the diversity of our population and recognizing that we actually take on some of the more difficult missions and the more essential ones. Often if a service is easy to provide, we will leave it to the private sector. But when something is difficult and expensive, we'll ask government to step up. Generally, we do not get to pick who we serve. At the City of Phoenix, we deliver water to everyone, regardless of background and the tools you have. So I think it's important to recognize different goals, and that's why you get different solutions.
Such an important set of points. Thank you for that. Mohamed, the big topic for most governments is the topic of trust between communities and their government leaders. And without good trust, it's much harder to make things happen. How can the public service delivery, like issuing a passport or license, how can it build credibility and trust with citizens in a post-pandemic world?
It is, I would say, Jonathan, services play a very big part in building and shaping trust between government and citizens and residents and the entire population. That said, you know, if we look at services that are difficult to reach customers, if a customer needs to travel 100 miles to reach a service center and to get his driving license to be renewed, then their trust level and their confidence in their government is obviously lowered down. But if the government takes the step to reach the customer before the customer even asks for it, then obviously the customer would be mesmerized with the service and obviously be more confident of his or her government. So for example, in the United Arab Emirates, we've worked on a set of proactive services in which we step before the customer requests the service and provide the service on behalf of the customer, such as driving license renewal or a passport renewal. We know that this is expiring. We know that the citizen is still driving, for example, and would like to renew it. We know that would most probably would be willing to renew it. So we initiate the service on the customer's behalf. And all the customer needs to do is say yes, and then we deliver the new driving license to their doorstep. And this is now, I would say, going across the board across all of our services. So we are working on transforming all of our services to be proactive services that preempts customer needs, and at the same time, it is all digital, all the way digital. So what we do right now, services that require physical presence. For example, if somebody is renewing the registration of a vehicle, they need to check the vehicle, do some sort of tests, which has to be done. I would say physically. We have offered, you know, primarily, I would say, or a temporary renewal of that registration, and they can go to the nearest center of testing later and get it tested, and then it will be uploaded into the system and verified that the car or the vehicle is fit to drive on the road. So such things, you know, can make whatever it is that makes people's life easier, would raise their confidence and trust in their government, I would say.
Mm. You know, a lot of the work you're doing there is are models for other communities around the world. I hope people will take a good look at some of your many successes there. Now I'd like to shift back to Janet. You know, it's often said that being in a community is not a spectator sport, that you should be engaged as a citizen or a community member. And so my question for you is, what are your thoughts on how ordinary citizens can step up to help to transform local and federal governments in these digital times?
Oh, that's such a good question, and such an interesting one, because I think the whole concept of citizen participation is helps make for a better country, a healthier country, and you know, there are a number of ways citizens can engage in the political process of their communities. They can participate as party members. They can run for office. They can help a candidate. As we come out of the pandemic and it's available that people can go knock on doors and say, have you voted yet? Do you know where to vote, etc. You know, that's all citizen participation. You can volunteer. You can help a nonprofit organization that provides services, for example, a food bank, all of these kinds of nonprofits requires citizen participation through their volunteer hours. And then finally, you can, at a minimum, stay informed. Make sure that you're getting good information and unbrokered information in a fashion, so that when it comes time to exercise your fundamental right as a citizen, the right to vote, your decision is really based on facts and not on propaganda.
Thank you. All makes for a richer democracy, all the advice you gave there. Thank you. And for Kate, we're sort of in the sort of solutions section of our discussion today. What are some of the bureaucratic inefficiencies that you've been focused on where you think you can bring, again, digital to bear and make a difference?
Cities, like large organizations, have people in specialized roles, which is efficient in some ways for service delivery, but difficult for navigation. And so we are trying to use technology to help people get to the place that can solve their problem. So for example, in the city of Phoenix, if there is trash in the streets department is in charge. Trash in your trash barrel, the public works department is in charge. And trash on your front lawn, that's our neighborhood services. We can't really expect our residents to be able to navigate all that. But with technology, you can download an app, you can report the trash, and we'll figure out who's responsible for solving the problem. So it's been very effective at helping break down silos. And we also can help people who even come to us with problems that are not traditionally under city government. So we will get people who call the mayor's office about the postal service. We're not in charge, but with digital connectivity, it's easier to get them to the solution that they hope to achieve and really solve people's problems, which is wonderful. I would echo earlier comments about digital documents as well, and just making it easier for processes for people to quickly, at a time that is convenient for them, get the documents in and get a response that they need. And recognize that for some people it's evenings, for some people it's during the workday, for some people it's weekends, but with these digital solutions, you don't have to wait till our call center opens on Monday morning.
That's great. A really strong theme there is flexibility, is making government more flexible to serve community. Thank you. Mohamed, the cabinet in your country recently approved the new UAE government services strategy for the next 5 years. Congrats on this. Could you talk to us about the central theme and tenets of this strategy?
You know, I would say the central theme of the strategy is a mix of what we just discussed. But just to summarize it, the primary thing is to put human first when designing any service. And when designing any service, make it digital first. So today, when the strategy is shifting the mindset and the work and the targets that we have is to design services that are designed to be on a digital environment, designed to be delivered digitally, and designed with the human in mind. The strategy also looks at community engagement and customer engagement. It emphasizes on bringing customers together in the design process of services. So at the United Arab Emirates and the government, we have been, for the past 10 to 12 years, we've been engaging with customers heavily. We have a lot of workshops, we have customer councils, where we bring customers around the table and discuss with them what they expect in a certain service, or what they expect from the government. And when I say customers, we look at all different personas of customers, from college students to elderly who are looking at their pension scheme and who are looking at their elderly services that are provided by the government. The strategy also focuses on increasing efficiencies, reducing duplication of effort. So there has to be a cross collaboration between government bodies to build platforms that are seamlessly integrated with each other, that can allow the customer to jump from one service provider to other, I would say, as a government body, seamlessly, without feeling that they are dealing with multiple different government bodies. I would say, I would echo what Kate just said, is that you use an application to pick up the trash. The customer doesn't need to care who's going to do it. They just need to just point out where the trash is, and then we will do the rest for them. And this is what the strategy sets out and focuses on. We look at utilizing future technology and advanced technology to optimize the way we work, such as utilizing artificial intelligence in analyzing the data that we have, understanding our customers better, serving them faster, serving them proactively. As I mentioned earlier, we are focusing on pushing towards proactive services, providing customers with what they need before they ask for it. We look at utilizing blockchain and IoT to understand our environment, understand what our customers are experiencing, so that we can serve them much faster and respond much faster. One of the points that we work on very heavily here in the United Arab Emirates is we focus a lot on customer feedback. So we do have channels that allow customer feedback to come through whenever they get a service. Whenever a service is rendered and is completed, they have the freedom to say whatever they want, whenever they want, through the mobile application or the digital portal, so that we can get that feedback, analyze it, understand it, and also improve our services, again, to focus on the human. Make sure that when we're doing anything, we focus on the human.
You know, I did my US taxes yesterday, and I spent about 5 hours doing them. And it occurs to me that it could make sense that the government sends me my completed taxes and I just check them. Some governments do this. So I love your idea of being proactive. Government has a lot of data to enable that. So as we begin to wrap up here, let's talk about the future. Let's sort of become visionary and think about sort of the time horizon of 5, 10 years and beyond. So let me go to Kate for this question. What's your vision for technology use in government delivery 5, 10 years and beyond?
One of the things I hope government will do well is try to connect people who are great at technology with a wider variety of problems. I went to grad school in the Bay Area, and my sense was that if you have a problem faced by a 25-year-old man in San Francisco, there is a startup that is going to solve it. But if you have a problem faced by an 80-year-old woman in Phoenix, for example, maybe managing her energy and water bill, that may not be as visible to our innovators community, but I think government can play a really important role in connecting academia, connecting venture capital, connecting great minds with the problems our entire community is facing. I also hope that we can help use technology solutions, to go back to my earlier theme, to serve our entire community, to know that we have people with all types of different backgrounds, different internet connectivities, different technologies in their lives, and there ought to be technological solutions that serve those on the front edge, but also those who are maybe a little bit slower to adopt. But that doesn't mean that technology cannot still improve their life, whether you are low literacy, speaking a less common language, technology can make your life better and help you being able to solve your own problems. So I hope that will be a big emphasis and one that will come out of the lessons we've learned during the difficult period of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Great. I hope that my colleagues here in Silicon Valley hear your advice loud and clear. Really well made. For Janet, one of the great things about having a conversation like this is we can imagine any type of future. When you look out 10 years, what would you like to see rather than what you think will happen? What would you like to see happen with digital services and technology in government?
Oh, I think Kate said it so well that digital services really can help improve the lives of everyone in a community. And what government can do is kind of explain to technologists and app developers and others, who needs to be served and what are the kinds of services they need, kind of be that bridge between those different worlds. One other thing I hope we see is more even distribution of broadband and access to broadband. President Biden, in his proposal pending in our Congress right now, puts a substantial amount of money into broadband accessibility across the United States. And one of the things we've seen, and we haven't talked about education at all today, but education here has been primarily at home via Zoom or some other device or platform. But that has really brought to light the fact that we have rural communities that don't have broadband. We have certain areas within our urban communities that don't really have good broadband. And so what I would hope to see in the next 5 years in the United States is that broadband be considered an essential service and brought to all.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. It seems like a basic requirement of the 21st century. So
Indeed.
true. So true. Thank you. Mohamed, as sort of technologies try to step up and meet the needs of our communities, what advice would you have for those innovative companies and tech companies to help serve communities around the world?
I would say I would say primary advice before I say anything else is that I call in and invite the innovators and the private sector, whether it being tech company or other, to participate in developing and improving government services. I believe that in the future, government services will not only be delivered by the government, however, it could be delivered also by third parties, by partners in the private sector. We have worked a lot on looking at the future of services and how it would look like. And we benchmark with the private sector. We look at what Amazon is doing. We look at what Airbnb is doing. And we look at super apps around the world, how they are delivering different services from different sectors within one small window. And we believe that in the future, these services will be delivered, government services could be delivered by ones like, Amazon or other portals that deliver different services. The other part also that I believe is from what we see today, a lot of users today rely a lot on, for example, digital assistants like Siri and Alexa. Government services could also be delivered there. And even information services, just having the ability as a citizen to ask a digital assistant what should I do to get so and so, and get the answer instantly. That is just, you know, it will increase efficiency on the government. We don't need call centers to answer these questions, and it will also make the customer much more closer to information that he or she needs. Obviously, the as Janet mentioned, you know, private sector also needs to step up their presence. Telecom operators need to be there. Broadband needs to be around. We do have quite good coverage in the United Arab Emirates on broadband. Almost everyone has broadband here. We do have 5G covering almost the entire country. However, there are other areas where technology and providers and telecom operators that can step in to help government deliver their services better.
Thank you, Mohamed. I love that your ideas aren't incremental; they're leaps, and that's so important from a government leader. So for my last question for you, Kate, then is there will be a lot of city leaders who watch this and listen to this group. And so what would be, maybe, I know it's a difficult question, but what would be your one sort of advice you would give for a city leader who wants to make a difference with delivering services over the next few years?
Well, I think cities are laboratories of innovation. So many of the great ideas that are changing our planet have come from cities. So just because no one has done it before doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And I would take the leap if I were a city leader with a good idea about how to move forward.
I love that. I love that answer. Great. And then finally, for you, Janet, a similar question, but maybe at the sort of macro level. You know, for states and countries, what might be a focus area, a piece of advice for making the leap in services over the next few years?
Well, I think you have to start with a basic premise. For example, as Mohamed said, where do you start? And he said, and I think persuasively and correctly, you start with the individual to be served, and you build out from there. One piece of advice I would offer leaders is, you know, when you're in a leadership position, your day gets filled. You have meeting after meeting after meeting, and everybody needs something. And I think that leaders need to make sure that they protect some time on their schedules for thinking, for imagining, and that they allow themselves not to be constrained by what's been done before, but to ask themselves, what if? You know, what if I could get access to city services by talking to Alexa or Siri? What if we got rid of all paper in government, not just some paper in government? What if we had universal access to broadband and in the United States and to 5G? What more could we do with those capabilities? And so allowing oneself really the time to think and to imagine, I think helps empower even better leadership.
Wow, so such great thoughts there. Thank you for that. You know, when I was writing my book about the future of cities, people thought, you know, it would start and end just about tech. But the first sentence is, this is a book about people. And it's been really nice to hear, despite our conversation about digitalization and tech, that this does come down to community and us as humans. And this has been a tremendous theme throughout. Whatever we do has to serve each of us in a very positive way. I have to thank you all very much. I feel that my life is better having spent this short time with the three of you. You've shared incredible insights, demonstrating that there are brilliant, brilliant leaders around the world who are passionate about this topic, who have good ideas, who can be models for others. So I want to say thank you to His Excellency Mohamed bin Taliah. It's great to see you and have you be part of this. To Mayor Kate Gallego, thank you so much. And to Governor Janet Napolitano, I knew I was going to have difficulty with your last name. But again, I want to thank you for this short time, but these incredible insights. You've been part of this special GX talk, which is part of a larger program. And again, thank you. And I hope to see you all soon again.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.